Last he visited here to Leichhardt against South Sydney. Barry Barnes, the whistleblower, and Wally Lewis, captain of the Brisbane side, the current Australian 5/8. So Neville Elwyn, who's got a very big job on his hands tonight at 5/8 for New South Wales country, kicks off, and a familiar face, Mitch Brennan, is the first of the Brisbane players to get a touch, and he got through the front line of defence and was tackled just inside the 22. Played by Greg Conescu and given to Brian Niebling. Some of your television guides in the newspapers may have Brian playing in number 11. He in fact is wearing 10. It's gone out wide to Miles, now to Meninga, and now it's Chalice. And Chalice is hemmed out there just beyond the 22 and very close to being put into touch. In fact, he is into touch. I would have thought he was held, and it wouldn't have shocked me at all had Brisbane been given the penalty. This Brisbane side, coached by Bobby McCarthy. New South Wales country by Alan Thompson, as the first penalty goes to that man's team, New South Wales country, a differential from the scrum. New South Wales country, of course, are burdened with the fact that since they played South Sydney, they haven't been able to train together as a team because of geographics, and they've only had the team back together again since Monday, as Carney goes across the field and he picks up Jeff Foster, who stood and got it back then to Gibson. Gibson is tackled only 12 metres out from the Brisbane line. Dummy half is Neil Michel, and that's Neville Elwyn right in front of the uprights, 10 metres out from the line. Coming onto it hard is Foster, but Michel scurries off from dummy half and takes it to within about 5 metres of the line. Elwyn's the number 6, and he tries to get away from that dummy half area before stepping off the right foot. Held and playing it now back to Michel. A decoy goes to the open side, but the dummy half is well and truly contained. And that's the end of 5, so we can look for Elwyn to put the bomb up, but the dummy half did the job. Foster, it's gone back and wide, and it's come down with Mitch Brennan. Brennan's on a run outside the 22 line, and still escaping players. Mitch Brennan to play it, playing it back to Mal Meninga. Now to Lewis, and this is Brad Tessman. Ball lost, and country come up with it. Midway 22 halfway on the Brisbane end of the field. That youngster who jumped on that loose ball was Richard Laurie, 19-year-old younger brother of Robert, or Rocky Laurie. Very nervous youngster in the dressing rooms before the match, and to get a touch and take a hit would probably rid him of some of those nerves. Quick passing by Brisbane. That last pass from Trevor Patterson, however, went to ground. Referee ordering play to continue, with the ball being knocked backwards and taking it to the blind side as the Brisbane side. It went over the hands of Brad Tessman, and it's with Chalice now. Conescu, ball fed back for Gene Miles to kick. Very high ball going down to Greg Ashton, son of former rugby league great Ferris Ashton. And this man is French, Robert French, for the country team, sponsored by the Caltex Oil people. Gibson is parcelled up on halfway. Michel, Carney, former St George player. This is the fellow that I'm told could make up into anything. Second row forward, Peter Johnston. Out now to Carney. On to Elwyn. Elwyn gets the short kick over the top of the backs, but it's gone out on the full. And another scrum to go down back from where the ball was kicked, almost on the halfway line.
And I think kicking is going to be an integral part of country's tactics this evening. They're controlling the ball particularly well, putting pressure on Brisbane, and have had by far the better of the opening 5 minutes. A lot of ability in the Brisbane side, of course. A lot of established test players. We're looking at Lewis and Meninga out there this evening to control much of Brisbane's attack. Country certainly handicapped by the loss of Rocky Laurie. And a lot of responsibility is going to rest on the shoulders of Neville Elwyn and the halfback Ken Carney.
Wayne Lindenberg was penalised then by the referee. He had a quick chat to him too. And that could be put down as a caution or a warning, if you like, to Lindenberg, who we first saw playing in cup football back in 1975. So he's had a long history, the halfback for Brisbane, in this standard of football. Gary Davis is tackled now, 18 metres out from the Brisbane line, and it's back to Carney, and Carney was just taken by the line of defence in time. As the ball goes to the right to Neville Elwyn, he sweeps it back hurriedly and hoping that he'd pick up somebody, and he did. And to play it is Peter Johnston. Ball played back to Michelle, and up goes Jeff Foster. And Foster is tackled again 10 metres out from the Brisbane line, and again they're on the fifth tackle. As Davis runs as a decoy, it goes to Gibson. Gibson puts it down. Michelle scoops it back. The ball bouncing out for Patrick to put the bomb up, and Brennan takes it. That's a line dropout for Brisbane. Line dropout to restart. So New South Wales country through penalties and, of course, through possession, have been able to mount quite a deal of pressure on Brisbane in the opening 6 or 7 minutes. Wally Lewis taking the dropout. No breeze to tell you about here tonight. Gary Davis, who plays for the Albion Park Club on the south coast. It's actually in the Illawarra district. As a one-handed pass is given by Foster back to Johnston. Johnston is tackled on the 22 line. Michelle goes across the ground, picks up Gibson, coming flat and straight. And Gibson is again just 10 metres out from the Brisbane line. The New South Wales country boys going quite nicely at the moment. Out to Neville Elwyn, and he's picked up McCartney, but he's wrapped up there by Gene Miles and by Wally Lewis. Michelle away from dummy half, running into the Brisbane number 11, Cavill Hugh. And Brisbane come up with the ball. Miles has gone in to take it away for one. In fact, I think I read somewhere where Gene does play in the forwards in the competition up there. At least he's played once or twice this year, maybe more, in the second row. Konescu, long ball, cutting out a player, picking up Brennan. Brennan neatly tackled there by Wicks, Gary Wicks. Now it's Brian Niebling. Through Lindenberg, it's with Lewis, the chip over the top. He's regathered on the full. Nice work by Wally Lewis. Meninga and Miles to choose from. Here comes the first try. If Miles has got the pace, he got to pass away to Lindenberg, and Lindenberg goes in to score the first try of the Cup quarter-final. And a nice try inspired by Wally Lewis with that little kick over the top. He just called for a quick ball. Lindenberg did his job, and then Lewis chipped it, marked it on the full, and this has really turned out to be a superb try scored by combined Brisbane. Look at the centres supporting him. Miles on the right, Meninga the left, and then Lindenberg got up there to support Miles. He did very well, the big centre, and Wayne Lindenberg scores the try for Brisbane to lead 4 points to 0.
Yes, well, certainly brilliant play by Wally Lewis. This is one of the features of his game, the ability to control that little chip over the top, and he's done it to perfection, hasn't he? And also, Miles backed him up on the inside. Miles was in a position, too, where the try could have died here, but he was able to hold up his pass just in time, and Lindenberg backing up. It was a top try, and full marks to Wally Lewis.
Wayne Lindenberg, the try scorer. Now we see Mal Meninga preparing to take the conversion attempt from right in front, just 11 metres out, and no troubles to Mal Meninga. And Brisbane leading country New South Wales 6 points to 0. Neville Elwyn restarting, and it's been taken in the in-goal area by the try scorer Wayne Lindenberg, playing it just inside the 22. Niebling. It's Patterson. Now to Lewis. Cut out pass to Lindenberg. And he's just outside his quarter. Foster and Gibson, the two props, making the tackle. Colin Scott. Cornescu. Fed back for the kick to Gene Miles. Miles puts in the big torpedo punt down to Greg Ashton. And Ashton's taking off over towards the right of the field. And he ran into Mal Meninga and duly was tackled. From McCartney back to French. And French was taken very hard there by Niebling and Cornescu. Michelle, short ball for Foster. And he was taken by Patterson and by Brian Niebling. Gibson goes ahead. Lewis is up the top, and Wally Fullerton-Smith is down low. And play is on the halfway line as it's passed to Carney. And Carney, his kick was charged down. Michelle picks it up. And again tackled by Fullerton-Smith around the legs. Out to Elwyn. Now to Patrick, the lock forward. And neatly tackled by Brad Tessman. Elwyn again now, taking it on that wrap over to the right of the field, where Tessman and Miles combine to make the tackle. Here's Peter Johnston on a diagonal run back to Carney. Carney's got away from the tackle there of one of the Brisbane players. It was Wally Fullerton-Smith. And Carney plays it about 11 metres out from the line. It's over to Gibson. Gibson is parcelled up. A good tackle. Had to be affected high. Taking him ball and all. Again, Fullerton-Smith, the tackler. Out now to McCartney. Gets the bomb in off the left foot. Not a bad kick either under pressure. And then it was put down. That's a try. Is it? No, he's ruled it no try. Well, it seemed that Gene Miles went for it and seemed to lose it on the way down. The head-on shot will tell the story of how the referee has read it. Miles went up. There goes the ball to ground. Now, he's ruled that Country were unable to force the ball, and looking at that, I agree entirely with the referee. They certainly didn't force that ball with downward pressure, but they certainly had the opportunity.
Yes, they certainly did, and it was a bad error as far as Miles was concerned. Scott, of course, is another player that isn't the safest fullback around with the high ball, even though he's in the Australian side, and I should imagine that Country will continue to pepper both of those, or Scott in particular, now whenever they're in the situation.
Good football by McCartney there, calling his prop forward Foster inside him. Foster plays it now. They're still only about 15 metres from the line. Elwyn, the grub kick through, and Mitch Brennan dives on it, and just as well he did, because Ashton was coming through very fast, and he anticipated the kick nicely. This is Fullerton-Smith, who plays the ball now, and it goes out to Wally Lewis. Lewis, a short ball. Ball played by Brad Tessman. Cornescu passing, picking up Cavill Hugh, and the ball on the ground is with Gene Miles, but a knock-on has been ordered, and a scrum about 6 metres inside the quarter line. Fourth quarter final of the KB Cup. Remembering that the winner of this match will meet Manly in next week's semi-final. If it's Brisbane, of course, the match, as I guess you know by now, will be played at Lang Park. Mal Meninga taken by Richard Laurie, swinging arm in the tackle too, which didn't find its mark, but it went unchecked, and it's gone out to Lindenberg. Lindenberg through a gap and outside the 22, and taking it up towards halfway, picking up Chalice. Chalice, who had that bright game for Brisbane against North Sydney when we were at Lang Park that night. He's very fast. Here's Lewis. Cut-out pass, picking up Gene Miles, draws the defence, gives it to Mal Meninga. The big Australian centre three-quarter draws the second-last line of defence and gets his pass to Mitch Brennan, who may even crawl over, but a hand has been placed on him. That, of course, effects the tackle. Miles is the dummy half. It's gone to Meninga. Long ball to Wally Lewis, and then he pops it down, and Brian Niebling is tackled. Desperate tackle, too, by Peter Johnston. That's the last tackle. A quick pass by Lewis. Out along the line, it's gone through Cavill, Hugh, Colin Scott, and gone to Wayne Lindenberg, and Lindenberg scores his second try of the night. Very quick passing, slick football by Brisbane. They I believe, know where their strengths lie. They play to it. They've got a magnificent link man in Lewis and a quick spread of the ball. Full back into the line, makes the extra man, and then fading across field, turning it back for Lindenberg to pick up his second try, and Brisbane lead 10-0.
Yes, and a well-deserved second try too for Lindenberg, because he was the player that put them in the situation to put the points on the board when he made that fine break from deep inside his own territory. And of course, we saw some great football by the Brisbane backs, with Lewis and Meninga very prominent before Lindenberg finally wrapped it up.
So Mal Meninga has got this kick from 24 metres out, 10 metres in from touch. 2 tries to the Brisbane side. Brad Tessman is getting some strapping to his left ankle. Meninga converted Lindenberg's first try. Meninga's kick is there, just inside the upright, and Brisbane go to a 12-0 lead after 14 minutes of the first quarter. Neville Elwyn again kicking off. Colin Scott showing it the once, then taking the defence on his own quarter line. Played by Patterson, blindside to Tessman. Conescu now. Out to Lewis. On to Lindenberg. This is Miles. Now it's to Scott. Scott clapping on some speed. Calls Brennan inside him. Shows him the ball. Takes the tackle though.
And Brennan should have gone inside too, because he had no opportunity to get in that right-hand touchline. But Scott gave him the option of coming back inside, and Brennan didn't pick up the signal.
Gene Miles having a busy game in the opening 15 minutes. Long ball out to Lindenberg. The kick through has found Patterson, the only Brisbane player, offside. That's all been nullified now, though, as Ashton shows his hand by running. And he plays it inside his 22. Peter Johnston. Now Gary Davis. Foster. McCartney falling in behind the ruck to kick. And his kick has gone down inside the 22, pursued by Colin Scott. Country's defence is up, and they should have made the tackle further downfield, but they've secured Scott on the 22. This is Lindenberg stepping and getting in behind the play and picking up Mitch Brennan. Brennan's out on his own. He has no support, and the country players are able to make the tackle. Ashton and Gibson, as the ball will be played back to Greg Conescu. Out to Wally Lewis. Chips across the top, sending Meninga through. Ashton across, takes it well. Good take by the New South Wales country fullback, and it appears he's hurt himself in doing so. Robert French, the dummy half, brings it away just to settle it for one, and a penalty to New South Wales country, and he's penalised Brisbane for stealing the ball. Wally Fullerton Smith, the man penalised. .12 the scoreline in favour of the Brisbane team. Foster, former Western Suburbs and Canterbury Bankstown player. Jeff, I think from memory, came from Griffith to those clubs and has made the return to Griffith. Now it's to Carney and Neville Elwyn, prolific point scorer in the Newcastle League. In fact, he's quite a hero in that area. I believe a busload of Neville Elwyn fans made the trip down tonight from Macquarie United. That ball has gone in touch in goal. So back to the 22 for the place kick restart by Brisbane. Just outside a minute of the first quarter remaining, and already Brisbane have shown that they've picked up where they left off. Lindenberg working the run round with Tessman. And that's Niebling, who's gone into dummy half. Ball lost. Knock on ordered. And a scrum on the far side of the ground. About 12 metres in. Not too far out from the Brisbane 22. It's won by the combined Brisbane side, and it's out to Lewis, and a long ball to Meninga. Quick pass to Gene Miles. Miles putting on the speed, coming to the halfway, looking inside. Good football, Gene Miles, picking up Mitch Brennan, who's getting plenty of work. But Miles has really put a stamp on this game in the first 20 minutes, even though Wayne Lindenberg has picked up the tries. Here's Miles now taking off for the line. He draws the defence, gives it to Brennan, and Brennan goes in for Brisbane's third try with the quarter-time siren sounding. But just as we were singing the praises of Gene Miles, he was there, Johnny on the spot, and that was a good ball to him. In fact, two good passes, got it to Gene Miles. Then he took the fullback, committed him to the tackle, and sent Mitch Brennan in to score the third try.
Yes, well, Miles certainly did it all himself here, positioned himself very well and pushed off a poor attempted tackle here from McCartney. He's got a good fend, Miles. He's a big lump of a bloke, and obviously you have to get underneath for him. Also, of course, he's feeding off some very good work from Meninga on the inside. Brennan, as you said, Ray, copped him plenty of opportunities out there this evening.
And he's just the sort of player to capitalise on them too, that fellow on camera. And that fellow too, for that matter, Miles and Brennan. But Mitch, he had a very big year down here with Souths, the year they took out the cup against Cronulla. Talking of heroes, he certainly was one at Souths that particular year. And this man, he's got a huge following of fans. Mal Meninga moving in, hits it, but it's getting across the face of the uprights. No goal. And at quarter time, Brisbane lead New South Wales country by 16 points to 0. The play coming back for the restart, the timepiece. I must admit to you, I thought I heard this. We're back 16 points to 0 following three very good tries by the Brisbane side. The first two in particular were great tries. As Patterson brings it out, scrums and penalties, 2-0 the scrums. They were both won against the feed too, those scrums. And the penalties have gone 3-0 to New South Wales country. Lindenberg and Cornescu working the run round dummy, and Brian Niebling is put to ground. Now touch judges come in. Brad Tessman has been called out. Barry Barnes taking a report from his touch judge and giving a penalty to New South Wales country. And Terry McCartney takes the penalty kick for line and finds it on the 22. Neil Michelle takes the tap and hitting it up as Foster. But though New South Wales country have been inside this 22 zone of Brisbane's on at least 4 occasions in the match so far, apart from a bomb, they haven't looked like breaking the defence, although Ashton was almost through then. He'll play it back to Johnston in 10. Johnston decides to go himself, and he's only a metre or so from the line. New South Wales country now, with Michelle showing it both blind side and open side. Tried to go himself and ran into the defence. Elwyn puts up the bomb again, and Mal Meninga went high. Robert French has it for New South Wales country, but a knock-on has been ordered over there. He'll put down a 5-metre scrum. So twice now the country boys have put the bomb up, and twice they've gone very close to scoring. And on both occasions, the international centres, Miles or Meninga, have made the mistake. Ken Carney's through. Carney's in to score. adjacent to the scrum base. He got a very good scrum win. A very good scrum win, and under the new rules of rugby league, it just left him with that extra space. Not the worry of a lock standing out of the scrum anymore. The heel was fairly very quick, in fact, and Carney, very experienced player, just slid up the side of the scrum base. Lewis tried, but it was too late, and New South Wales Country have taken their first points, and they bridged the gap back to 16 points to 4.
Yes, a very good try there by Carney. He got away from the scrum base very quickly, but I thought that Lewis was slow to turn and get in there. The danger was there. He spotted it, but he just didn't move quickly enough to cover it.
Interestingly enough, that try was scored from a scrum that was won again against the feed. 16 points to 4 as the Brisbane side put their heads together. Still, I wouldn't think a great deal or a great need for any panic in that rank out there in relation to the scoreline, although the try has been converted. 16 points to 6 now in favour of Brisbane.
No, I agree with what you say, Ray, but the attitude of the Brisbane players doesn't appear to me as if they feel that Country are any threat this evening, and they just seem to be playing well within themselves. They've opened up on a couple of occasions, but they haven't been anywhere near as positive in either attack or defence as they were up in Brisbane when they put the cleaners through North Sydney. And even though they've scored 3 brilliant tries, I think their performance tonight wouldn't be entirely satisfying to their coach Bobby McCarthy at this stage anyhow. I don't think there's anywhere near the bait and in their defensive pattern, and I think Country have been making good inroads up the middle of the field.
Gibson. There's young Darren McCarthy with Peter Tunks on his left. Darren, of course, in the first grade South Sydney side these days, the son of the Brisbane coach Bobby. Or Carney snatched at that pretty ordinary pass. Lewis has picked it up, threw it back to Meninga, who actually was down on the ground completing a tackle, and he was still able to take it. Meninga plays it back to Wally Lewis, and it goes to Brad Tessman. Tessman stands, almost was able to say who wants it before hitting the ground, but nobody was there. Lindenberg, and that's Colin Scott up in the line. The ball knocked backwards by Country, and so the referee gives 6 more tackles. It's out to Lewis, and Lewis spins one across the ground, picked up by Gene Miles, and he was tackled by young Laurie. It's with Meninga, and he'll prove hard to stop, although the Country boys have come in a gang and put him down 18 metres out from their line, from Brennan to Lewis, and now it's with Niebling. Niebling again taken by a 3-man New South Wales Country tackle, and coming up into the attack is Cavill Hugh. He's in the centre of the ground, tackle number 5. Lewis will be wanting it, although it's with Lindenberg, and Tessman has put it on the ground. This will be knock-ons against both, and a scrum to go down inside the Country 22. Scrum won by the New South Wales side. Ken Carney put to ground. Here's Gibson inside the 5 against Brisbane, and another penalty. Does that make the penalties now?
5-0 to Country. Scrums 2 apiece, of course.
Big League magazine out as of today, and with its regular good stories on rugby league. And the colour photo this week is of the Western Suburbs player Steve Broughton. Referee is calling timeout. Shortage of a thing called the ball. Wicks, tackled by Patterson, and that's Davis. Fullerton Smith over the top, and Tessman down below. Carney Patrick. That pass was far too hard for the man on the run. And that's Patterson, who plays it back to Lindenberg. Play is just into country's half. Niebling. Back to Konescu. Now to Lindenberg. On the run round. Turning it back inside for Tessman. Got a pass away. Linking up with the backs was Colin Scott. Scott put to ground. Lewis. Straight through up to the 22. Eventually was pulled down by Elwyn. Tessman getting the arms free, able to keep the ball alive. Lindenberg, short ball to Scott, now to Lewis, now to Miles, on to out to Cavill-Hugh, now Meninga. And Meninga has put it down. French comes away with it. Running into Wally Lewis. Over the top goes Wayne Lindenberg. And Robert French to play the ball. Foster. Ooh, that should bring a penalty. Fullerton Smith. He is saying that the country player provoked him and he let go with that punch, and it was in full view of the referee, and Barnes has given the penalty to the country side. McCartney taking the line kick, finding it about 35 metres out. Michelle. And Ross Gibson takes it up again to be met by Konescu and Tessman. Here's Foster. Carney. Elwyn. Davis. Put down by Miles. McCartney. It's his kick in. It's going down to Scott, back on his own quarter line. Shows it to Brennan, goes himself. And Wicks and Patrick make the tackle. Brennan goes away with it. Patterson. Lewis. Cut out pass to Miles. The big centre is over the halfway line. Coming back into the centre of the ground. Meninga's in support. There goes Meninga. Out to score the try for the Brisbane team, and he's over. Mal Meninga scores the fourth try. And again, Gene Miles having a very big part in the action. Lindenberg, I didn't have time to tell you, but he was the player running on the right of Gene Miles. So these three players are really combining beautifully. Lovely pass by Lewis, sending Miles into a gap inside the halfway, came away from the heavy traffic, came back into the centre of the park. Then he had Meninga left, Lindenberg right to choose from, but Big Mal was the man that he elected to give it to. And though Richard Laurie tried hard, Mal Meninga in to score Brisbane's fourth try.
Yes, but the general of so much of Brisbane's attacking pattern, Wally Lewis, a magnificent pass there to put Miles back into the off his left foot there into the opening, brushed off Carney, and then, as you said, Ray, he had the opportunity of picking up Lindenberg, but big Mal Meninga was the bloke to give it to. He's a big lump of a fellow, plenty of pace, tackled well short of the line, but his momentum took him over.
Brisbane's fourth try, Meninga attempting conversion from right in front, just 11 metres out. And he'll take this scoreline to 22 points to 6. That he does. And New South Wales country copping a sight of what this Brisbane side is capable of. Restarting proceedings. Scott out to the 22 line. A little bit of breeze springing up now, coming down the ground from behind New South Wales country. And a penalty to Brisbane. Is that the first they've got tonight? First penalty of the night to the Brisbane team. Well, though some people were rather premature in the discussions leading up to this match tonight. In fact, the discussions we've been reading about over the last 24, 36 hours has been about next Wednesday's match. It's looking now most certain that the game that I guess everybody's been waiting for is to go on. Manly and Brisbane at Lang Park next Wednesday. And that will be played, I would think, under a state of origin test match atmosphere. Brian Niebling has lost the ball, and to play it is Gibson for country. This is Foster. Meantime, Cronulla Sutherland and Eastern Suburbs are waiting to play their semi-final, and neither can be denied a chance of winning this cup in '83, keeping in mind that they've been sailing along with not a great deal of attention being paid to them. And they've both got very good cup records. East's the best side we've seen as far as records are concerned. Mitch Brennan kept that ball in field, but it just trickled out before Colin Scott could keep it in field. Brennan did his job, first with the hand, then with the leg, and Colin Scott wasn't able to keep it there. So the scrum will go down 10 metres out from the Queensland or Brisbane line. But that should be one heck of a night up there next Wednesday. And the schoolboys match that will precede the cup match, Brisbane folk will get a chance to see one of our leading rugby league colleges in action, St Gregory's College, Campbelltown. They'll play the curtain raiser. And they'll be playing that side from Mergen High, who tonight won an earlier Commonwealth Bank clash against Keebra. Quite a side, that team of schoolboys. 17 in the squad, 14 of them Aboriginals. And they came down here and they really put on a showing.
Yes, they certainly did. They're very enthusiastic, and there were some good players amongst them, and they certainly thrilled the crowd here at Leichhardt Oval this evening.
So the ball being tapped by Lindenberg. He ran round Conescu. The ball went on out to Cavill Hugh, who on a couple of occasions in attack, I found him very wide, Hugh. I don't know if that's his style of playing, but at least twice he's been very, very wide. In fact, outside Meninga on a couple of occasions. As the referee orders a knock-on and a scrum to go down 5 metres on the Brisbane side of halfway. And Bruce Astle in 17 is jogging around to the other side of the ground. It's probably Wayne Chalice who's indicated he can't continue as the scrum erupts and the penalty goes to country. (7-2) now the penalties to country, 3-2 the scrums to Brisbane, as McCartney finds the line. Well, Brisbane certainly copping a hiding in the penalties here tonight. Gibson giving it back to Johnston. That replacement has been made on the far side of the ground. And another penalty goes to country against Brad Tessman. Bruce Astle has gone on the far side of the ground. He's replaced Wayne Chalice. Michelle plays it back to Foster. It's out to Carney, now to Johnston. And Johnston's about 8 metres out, right in front of the Brisbane uprights. Here's Gibson hitting it up. But he was met by a fairly heavy tackle from Brian Niebling. Now to Carney, out to Neville Elwyn. Lewis has got him. Assisted there in the tackle by Fullerton Smith. And Elwyn it is who plays the ball. Back to Michelle, now to Carney. Cuts out a player, picks up Davis. Davis flung to the ground by Patterson. And the referee indicates 5 tackles. Now to Foster. Foster gets his kick in, and it's bounced in goal and gone over the dead ball line. It'll be a 22-place kick to restart. Wayne Chalice nursing a shoulder as he is escorted by one of the trainers from the field. Oh, Cavill Hugh has gone right through the New South Wales defence. Now it's Niebling. Short ball to Lewis. Quick pass. Miles feeding off Lewis. And nicely tackled there by the very small New South Wales country hooker Neil Michel. Lewis again. Spinning it wide. Beautiful passing out to Lindenberg. Quick pass by Cavill Hugh. Again out wide. Meninga gave it to Astle, and Astle has dropped it. A scrum 3 metres on the country side of halfway.
Yes, and unfortunately for the country boys, they don't have the equipment to handle this Brisbane side when they move into gear. Probably fortunately for them that they've had a string of penalties to the tune of 8-2 in their favour, enabling them to play with possession. But unfortunately, they haven't been able to really pressure the Brisbane side. They've been attempting to play it up the middle through the likes of Johnson and Gibson. But apart from spasmodic occasions when they've sort of made the half break, they haven't really played or given the Brisbane defence too much worries.
Greg Ashton playing it now. Half-time, about 2 minutes away. Here's Carney, who scored the only try for the New South Wales country team. And now it's Gibson. Sprinkling rain again here at Leichhardt, as has been the case in Sydney most of the day. Terry McCartney able to stand in the tackle, but there wasn't a runner coming off him as Elwyn works with Michelle, and the hooker is tackled. Now to Elwyn. The bomb, seeing fullback Ashton go ahead, flying high for the Brisbane team. And saving for them was Brennan. Here's Miles coming away with it. Taken heavily there by Johnston and Gary Wicks. Ball struck in the play the ball by Johnston, and a penalty goes to Brisbane, striking prematurely. Lewis finding touch, 8 metres inside the quarter. Now Brad Tessman. Greg Konescu. Cavill Hugh. Lewis switching it. Niebling got a pass away to Fullerton Smith. He floats one out to Meninga, who was actually tackled in mid-air. Spectacular stuff, that. Meninga was in mid-air, and Richard Laurie made his tackle while the big fellow was up there. Meninga has been hurt in the tackle. This is Fullerton Smith, and country have the ball. Terry McCartney's in possession. I don't think the referee realises that country has the ball. In fact, he didn't. He was standing back and ruling his 5 metres on the country team. And when he looked back, he found that the country dummy half was off with the ball. Gibson. Let's have a look at Meninga now and see if we can ascertain whether he's going to continue. As the siren sounds, well, that's going to give them a 10-minute break anyway to repair the damage, if that's at all possible. I doubt that Bobby McCarthy will let him continue. Far too valuable with this match at 22 points to 6 to aggravate any injury that Meninga may have done. It's just one of those things, as I said, he had to fly high to take an awkward ball that was passed to him, I think, by Wally Fullerton Smith, who just had a yarn to him then. It was a pass whereby the attacker had no way of covering himself.
What's commonly known as a hospital pass, wasn't it?
Yes, 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 I've heard it called at St Vincent's. But Meninga, he had no thought of self-preservation at the time. Unfortunately for him, there was a young guy called Richard Laurie, Johnny on the spot, and he took him. I think Mal has probably twisted a knee or something coming down. the attempted penalty by Neville Elwyn, and he's been successful. So at the half-time break, Brisbane lead New South Wales country by 22 points to 8, and we'll be back and down to Greg Ashton, who's coming out towards the 22 line, and that's where he's put down by Mal Meninga, who is still on the field. There was a doubt that he may not come back in this third quarter with Peter Johnston. Just outside the 32 as the ball is spun back for McCartney, the centre, to kick, and Brennan got underneath it and then lost his foot in, and it's gone over the touchline, and a scrum to go down 12 metres on Brisbane side of the halfway. Well, Mitch had it covered everywhere, and then he ran too far, keeping in mind that I think on that angle that he was running, he'd be looking straight up at the floodlights, which have created a lot of problems for players over the years. Coldest July day this century. I knew it was cold, I didn't think it was that cold. So it's with the Brisbane side now. Just doing it cozily at the moment, scoring 4 very good first half tries. As the ball is won by country, and Carney to Elwyn, Elwyn to Ashton, Ashton to McCartney, McCartney taken by Meninga and Miles. Ball played by Terry McCartney, and taking it away from dummy half is Ashton. Taken low by Niebling, over the top by Brad Tessman. And it's McCartney distributing out to Carney, Carney to Foster. And Foster is able to get the pass away back to Ken Carney. And he decides he'll take the forwards on himself. But Ashton coming from the wing with Niebling make the tackle. This is Foster. And play is at the moment on the halfway mark. Michelle, Carney, Elwyn. The kick is nicely placed by Neville Elwyn. That's if it's got the followers. Scott dives on it, but he in turn is tackled by Rick Patrick. Now it's with Brennan. Brennan able to shrug off a couple of feeble attempts at tackle before he was eventually grasped. Now this is Niebling turning it back inside for Patterson. Michelle and Johnston making that tackle. And again it's Brian Niebling with Rick Patrick in the number 8, Peter Johnston the 10. Out to Lindenberg, then to Scott, who dummied, gave the pass to Fullerton Smith. It's been left on the ground, dived on by Lindenberg, and a knock-on has been ordered. The scrum just outside the quarterway line. 22-8 in favour of Brisbane as they win a scrum, and Lindenberg wrapped up by Carney. Brennan throws the pass to Lewis. Lewis cuts out a player when he saw the defence come up quickly, then to Meninga. Infield pass to Gene Miles. Miles taken around the legs by Gary Davis, and Wally Lewis has gone in now to dummy half, away to Lindenberg, and then he ran around behind Tessman, but the defence wasn't obstructed. Lindenberg on a long run, looking back in the centre of the ground, found Tessman, who gave it in turn to Brennan, and Brennan plays it just outside the country 22 through Patterson and Fullerton Smith. It's gone out, and a tackle with it is Colin Scott, who plays it now to Miles. Miles puts the kick up, a very high one. It's going up and down in the same area of the field. Brisbane getting a hand to it, raking it back. They've got 6 more tackles out of it. Referee ruling that New South Wales country came in contact with it, as the ball is given now to Konescu running to the blind side. And he's pulled down by Peter Johnston and by Rick Patrick. Out now to Brian Niebling through 1, And that's a good run by Niebling. Only a run of about 7 or 8 metres, but he was going through some fairly heavy traffic. Lindenberg. Oh, that's a good pass by Fullerton Smith, sending Patterson down towards the line. Then he threw the pass and hoped for the best. But it's been dived on by Richard Laurie. There's a good pass by Fullerton Smith that put Patterson into that gap. And it probably was deserving of a try, but that final pass let the Brisbane side down. Gibson now. Michelle Davis. This countryside without Paul Field, state representative, and Robert Laurie, two of their key players. Scott. Kick going straight to him, and he was able to take play back deep inside Country's half. Niebling. Lewis. And a penalty. Now, tempers have frayed. And that is no place for the faint-hearted. Not just at the moment, anyway. There's a touch judge going in to try and help the man in the centre, and all of a sudden Brad Tessman came rocketing out of the pack.
Yes, well, actually, they lost no time in getting to Wally Lewis here. When he was tackled, he was held, he was looking to pass the ball, and all of a sudden, of course, one went in, and then players came from everywhere.
The penalty had already been given to the Brisbane side. This touch judge with his back to us was the man who had a pretty heavy collision with Brad Tessman. So Ross Gibson,
10 minutes,
has been sent to the sin bin for 10 minutes, and Jeff Foster as well. Replacement on for New South Wales Country. Well, am I to take it that only one has been sent to the sin bin and the other has come off to be replaced? Number 14 is on for the New South Wales Country side, Michael McKinnon.
No, there's only 11 players out there for Country, Ray.
All right, OK, so Michael McKinnon has gone on for Richard Laurie, and both front rowers for New South Wales Country, Gibson and Foster, have been sent to the sin bin for 10 minutes. So New South Wales Country have now got one hell of a job in front of them, because that penalty by Mal Meninga sends Brisbane to a 24 points to 8 lead, and for another 10 minutes they'll be playing against 11 men only.
Yes, and certainly Gibson was one of the few players that was prepared to take on the Brisbane side. He had led by example, and with Johnson and probably Foster had been doing a lot of the heavy work. So as you said, Ray, the next 10 minutes is going to be very interesting.
Well, the way the Queenslanders have been scoring tries, it would seem with ease, but I still believe there have been some very good tries amongst them. And one would think they would take the opportunity firmly in their grasp and spin this ball, spread it, and they should score a couple of tries in the next 10 minutes at least. This is Niebling on a long run down the left flank, popping a pass down through Fullerton Smith to Lindenberg. Lindenberg back to Fullerton Smith again. Out now to Colin Scott. They've only got to pass the ball quickly. Well, that was passed badly behind the attack. Meninga gives it to Brennan. Brennan's away, and he's going in to score Brisbane's 5th try of the night. Mitch Brennan scores his 2nd, and Brisbane's number 5. Taking the score to 28 points to 8. And it was simply a case of the Brisbane side keeping the ball alive. A long ball from Lewis, stretching it to the extremities. This man wasn't put down, Brian Niebling. He was able to get that pass away. Fullerton Smith gave it to Lindenberg. He wasn't put down. Back to Fullerton Smith. So he was in the move twice. He was still able to get it away. Colin Scott's pass was a bad one. So you would have thought by now somebody would have happened along to make a hit. But keep in mind the countryside had only 11 players. Meninga drew the last players and gave it to Brennan, who had an unchecked passage.
Yes, but even allowing for the fact that Country only had 11 players, there was ample opportunity for the Brisbane ball carrier to be put to the ground. And, of course, this has been Country's major problem all evening. They just haven't had the power to contain the Brisbane ball carrier. Meninga's kicked the goal to make it 30 points to 8. Good run by Niebling there, but under the watchful care of 3 Country players, he certainly should have been put to the ground, and the movement should have been effective.
They'd be about 3 minutes into their sentence. With Neville Elwyn kicking off, and Colin Scott to bring it back across to Lindenberg. Play just inside the 22, with Gene Miles having played it. Meninga has reached the quarter line. Dummy half Canescu out to Lindenberg, over to Lewis. And there's that long pass from Lewis that is really his trademark. Niebling plays it from Miles across to Lewis, again out to Lindenberg. And Scott tried to get through a gap, but it was nicely closed by Neville Elwyn and by Ken Carney. Now back to Wally Lewis. Drops it onto the boot. Came off a New South Wales player's hand and dived on by Ashton. Just his side of halfway. That's Gary Wicks. Meninga is still on the ground. He hurt himself in that tackle. Play on, says the referee. This is Patterson. Brought down by McCartney. Meninga groggily getting to his feet. He must have taken a knock on the head. Out to Lewis, and now here's this man who's been running off his captain so well in the first half, Gene Miles, in possession. Held by Patrick and Davis. Lindenberg a short ball away through Fullerton Smith to this man, Tessman. And Colin Scott has gone into dummy half. On a run of about 5 metres, back to Tessman, and he was cut down by Patrick. Brisbane about 10 metres into their opponent's half as Lindenberg takes the tackle, fires the ball out to Patterson. And he's held out there by McCartney and Carney. Miles is the dummy half. Over to Lewis. Lewis tries the kick again. That's offside. That's a penalty to Brisbane. Penalty to Brisbane right in front, 25 metres out. And I'm just wondering whether Mal Meninga will be well enough to take this kick. He's coming over. They've decided to take the tap anyway. It's out with Hugh, who's up inside the 22, looks inside for Astle, who was a little bit slow in getting inside the front rower. Here's Astle off from dummy half now, free of one tackle, but held by French. 5 metres out from the Country line, through Lindenberg to Lewis, back to Lindenberg, and going straight through the New South Wales Country defence to score the try was lock forward Patterson for Brisbane. So that brings up their 6th try of the night and takes their lead to 34 points to 8. Just a orthodox run round, and with 11 players against them. Runarounds, of course, create extra men, and that forward coming into the back line actually brought up another extra man.
Yes, but a bad defensive miss there by Patrick and also by the second rower Davis. But the player that's impressed me out there this evening, certainly Miles has had a magnificent game, but so too has Lindenberg, the halfback. He's been involved in a lot of Brisbane's attacking moves, controlled the play particularly well. He's got tremendous pace, featured in the first 2 tries, of course, and has created many opportunities for his outside backs.
36 points to 8 in favour of Brisbane, with Mal Meninga converting the Patterson try. Channel 10 replay of the Sydney Premiership this Sunday at 6 o'clock will feature the Canberra Raiders and Canterbury Bankstown. That telecast from Seaford Oval, while Brisbane viewers will see Valleys take on Easts in the Channel O telecast match at 6:30 in the Northern City. First Sunday telecast for the Raiders as Lewis, or Testman I should say, comes through the defence. Out it goes to Lewis, out to Lindenberg, now to Miles, that's Astle, and Mitch Brennan can't handle. And McCartney dives on it, he can't handle either, and it's gone over the touchline. So the referee will take it back to the original knock-on and put a scrum down. Meninga at the moment appears to be resting on the left flank, and Astle, just for a few moments, had moved into the centres. Seven minutes before the break. Elwyn taken by Scott. Gavin Jones on the sidelines limbering up for the Brisbane side as Rick Patrick takes the tackle for New South Wales country. Now it's McCartney. Michelle. Carney sees an opening and tries to scurry through, but Lewis is there to shut off the attack by the New South Wales side. Elwyn with the grub kick through, and Mitch Brennan has forced it in goal, so it's a line dropout to be taken by Wally Lewis. Meninga has come from the field and has been replaced by Gavin Jones. That's a replay of the New South Wales country attempt at scoring, as the two New South Wales country props come back out of the sin bin. And it's with Carney, and that should be a knock-on. It is, and a scrum will go down 10 metres on Brisbane side of the halfway. That's the new player on. Hardly recognisable from that shot, however. Now, Lewis. Astle. Nicely passed by Lewis. Gave Astle a beautiful passage. French gave him a start, caught him, but it was a tremendous ball from Lewis that sent the former winger in this match anyway, Bruce Astle, on that run down the left touchline. Played by Jones. Out to Lindenberg. Now it's with, let's see, Fullerton Smith. And he plays it. That's a penalty. That's against the man playing the ball, interfering with the marker. It's a rule that, again, isn't enforced all that much. Both men have equal obligations not to interfere with one another. And that is not the action of, I realise the score is 36-8, but Fullerton Smith is now a test player. And when you're in possession of the ball, you just don't give it up. Not for anything. Gibson. Johnston. Only a youngster, this fellow, but he shows that as his career wears on, he's going to be certainly a great force for New South Wales country, and probably will finish up in Sydney. This is Ashton. Just short of the halfway. A couple of New South Wales country players on their haunches, as you can see from that shot. So at the moment they're back playing with 11 men again, under different circumstances, of course. Carney, Patrick, Johnston. A couple of attempts at high tackle there from Brisbane, and Johnston was allowed to stand. Here's Davis getting a kick in. It's blocked down by Scott, but the referee has ordered the knock-on. As a touch judge goes in to make another report to his centre man. Fullerton Smith again being spoken to. Carney. Elwyn, taken by Lewis. Now Carney. McCartney. He's inside Lindenberg. He's got around the fullback, and McCartney has scored a solo try. Good effort by Terry McCartney. Did it all on his own. And this is how it happened for him. It was a long ball. He got away from 1, 2, stepped inside a third, and then inside a fourth. So, for a solo effort, a good try scored by Terry McCartney.
Yes, it was certainly hard to beat, wasn't it? He got inside Astle and Miles here, and really got outside Astle, inside Miles. Beat the cover defence of Lindenberg coming across, and with the same step, of course, he wrong-footed scoffed the fullback. Top try by McCartney.
36 points to 12 in favour of Brisbane over the New South Wales countryside. Attempted conversion to be taken by Elwyn from right in front, and that also is successful. So 36 points to 14 is the new scoreline, just in front of three-quarter time. Mind of Alan Thompson. This is Ashton. Now Davis. Well, the try was on. Some of these, what some spectators do from time to time. There's a bloke knocking on the window. I thought it was Avon calling. Gibson, and a penalty goes to country. Inside the 5 against the Brisbane side. Try scorer Terry McCartney taking the line kicks. Michelle taking the tap to Gibson. And that man is Jeff Foster. And another penalty to New South Wales country. Well, he's given Fullerton Smith 10 minutes in the sin bin. And there's the siren sounding in the wake of Fullerton Smith making his exit. As McCartney takes the penalty, a good kick too, finding it just inside the 22 line. So what they will do here is take the tap and put it up. Here's McCartney. There goes the bomb. Brisbane getting under it per medium of Gene Miles. The tackle is made, and that's the end of the third segment of tonight's quarterfinal. Brisbane 36, New South Wales country 14. Brisbane, as we go into the final 20 minutes of this fourth quarterfinal. Scrums and penalties. The penalties 12-6 to country. Scrums have gone 6-5 to country. And here's another of those scrums going down now. Scrum being worked by Wayne Lindenberg. And won by the Brisbane side. Lindenberg's pass out to Colin Scott, then to Miles, down to Astle, and Astle is tackled just 10 metres out from the line. Brisbane playing with 12 men as Scott goes from dummy half, and he's only a metre out. Conescu decides to try it himself as he spins back and goes around. Scott now is the dummy half. Out to Miles, standing in very close, and the big man held again very close to the line. Lewis will be wanting it now. Here he is with the ball. There goes his long pass out to Brad Tessman. And he's pulled down by the replacement for country, Michael McKinnon. The bomb should be on now. Here's Lewis putting it up and going pretty well straight up and down. Ashton went up for it and has managed to get possession for his team. This is Davis. Gibson. Over the top there was Patterson, the Brisbane lock forward. Patrick. Ball going behind McKinnon. Pursued by Jones, caught and held. Jones in 16. French on the 22 line. Tackled by Niebling. McCartney. His kick going between the fullback and winger. And Colin Scott required to take it up. Tackled by Neville Elwyn. Lindenberg. Short pass to Brennan. And pulled down in a two-man tackle. And Carney has come up with it for New South Wales. Patrick. Davis. Patrick's in receipt of the ball again. And he's nearly on the halfway line. Elwyn. Michelle. Carney. Away from Niebling, turning it inside, finding Foster. Now McCartney losing it. Towed ahead by New South Wales country. The referee allowing the advantage to apply. And now he'll call it back for the knock-on that occurred back on the Brisbane 22. A series of opportunities squandered. Scott on his own 22. Astle. Tessman. Lindenberg, Lewis, and Niebling. Gary Davis making the tackle. Niebling. Lewis getting it inside to Tessman. Good pass. It's Cavill-Hugh. Back to be taken by the New South Wales country prop forward Gibson. Carney through Elwyn. Short ball then for Ashton, giving it to Lewis. Popping it over the top for Lindenberg. Lindenberg's up to the 22, hangs on for as long as he can before giving it to Brennan, and Mitch is in for try number 3 to him and try number 7 to Brisbane. Well, again, Wally Lewis was the man responsible for this try. Starting out, Ashton heard a call. It was Wally Lewis that was calling for it. And then he was able to stand in that tackle. And even when he was under pressure, he was still able to loft a ball out of the reach of the defence. Lindenberg was there to support. And he held it up for as long as he could before giving Mitch Brennan that charge down the touchline. And Brennan extends the Brisbane lead to 40 points to 14.
Yes, and of course, Lindenberg, Johnny on the spot again, wasn't it? Indicative of country's performance, the way Ashton was obviously conned into that particular call by Wally Lewis. And then Mitch Brennan, of course, enjoying plenty of opportunities, puts his third try on the board.
So Wally Lewis taking over as the goal kicker for Brisbane, successful with his shot, and Brisbane leading by 42 points to 14. Ninga was replaced by Gavin Jones. He injured an ankle just prior to halftime, but I think that it was a knock on the head that he took during the third quarter that prompted his coach Bob McCarthy to have him replaced and get him ready for that big clash next Wednesday night. Ball put down by Cavill-Hugh, but I was going to say he went after it to make a knock-on out of it. But now he's gone back and ordered the original knock-on and a scrum to pack down. A couple of more of the Brisbane players getting ready to use up the last 10 minutes of the match. Lindenberg chased and caught by Carney, got a pass to Lewis. Lewis stands, still able to pass, gets it away to Colin Scott, and Scott is tackled 15 metres into New South Wales area. Dummy half is Gene Miles. This man is Niebling. Lewis, Lindenberg, Miles putting it down, and a knock-on has been ruled. Brisbane's penalty against the feed from Carney. Second row feed, and it was also fed into the scrum from about knee height. I thought the scrums this year were supposed to be fed with the ball rolled into the scrum.
Yes, I think it's just the discretion of the referee now, isn't it, the way they're going? Because certainly...
You don't see it very often.
No, you don't. You started off applying, but we certainly slipped backwards towards what it was last year.
Line dropout to recommence play. Scott looking for Jones. Tessman. Lindenberg. Lewis back to the halfback. And then getting a pass to Gene Miles, who comes back to the centre of the ground, finds his front row forward, Brad Tessman, backing up, and he's been rewarded with a try. Well, again, the combination of Lewis, Lindenberg and Miles has been seen to the fore. Lindenberg ran around Lewis, took the ball back from him, shot through a little gap, held it up, gave it to Miles, off the right foot, back into the centre, looking for support, and found, of all people, a front row forward, and Brad Tessman picks up a try. 7 for the match. 46 points to 14.
Yes, he's certainly given a lively performance, Lindenberg. Plenty of pace, half through the gap, picked up Miles. Miles back inside Davis, and of course inside to Tessman. Can't be they've tried hard. They just haven't had the equipment to match Brisbane. And I think it's a Brisbane side too that for most of the game have played in second gear.
Well, if they're in second gear, it'll be interesting to see them in full flight next Wednesday night. That was the successful conversion as we come back to the action live for the kickoff. And it's Brisbane with the ball just outside their 22. The Lewis Lindenberg run around again. Running onto it was Patterson. And the referee has given possession to New South Wales country. Gibson. 10 minutes to go. McCartney. .15 is on for the Brisbane side. Richard Colson. Michelle, very close to the line for the New South Wales side.
Yes, and again, it was good work by Carney too. He's had a pretty involved game out there this evening.
Gibson, that's the turnover. So the ball to be played by Paulson. Here's Scott. Giving the pass to Lindenberg, and he's held about 10 metres out from the line. Astle. Niebling popping it back to Paulson. Just inside the quarter line. Brisbane unable to make too much territory with this passage of play, but here's the kick ahead by Lindenberg, taken by Lewis, spun out to Tessman, and Tessman is tackled by French about 10 metres into New South Wales's area. Across the ground it goes now, with Brad Sully also on for the Brisbane side, now passing, and it's Bruce Astle who plays the ball. Inside country's 22. Lewis, that long ball, it must have gone about 22 metres. Picked up by Colin Scott. Scott gets a pass inside. It's with Gene Miles. Given down to Konescu. Away to Lindenberg. Now it's gone through and over again to Wally Lewis. Still able to stand and throw the pass, hoping for the best. Picked up by Colin Scott. He decides to kick. When will this end? Up goes Ashton. He's been tackled. And after plenty of action, not very much resulting. Timeout with the man in possession of the ball, unable to play it. Brisbane 48, leading New South Wales country 14. Sully is on, Paulson is on, Jones and Astral. So Bobby McCarthy has used all 4 replacements, and he has left Fullerton Smith off the field. He would have been due to come back a couple of minutes ago, but that final replacement, Brad Sully, has in effect come on to replace Wally Fullerton Smith. Brisbane now 10 metres out from the New South Wales country line, across and through Miles to Lindenberg. Just hesitates for a second, gets away from a tackle. Eventually it was left to Neville Elwyn to pull him down. 8 metres out from New South Wales line, across and out to Astle. Astle held by McCartney, and he will play the ball back to Paulson. Across to Wally Lewis, cutting out a player, getting out to Gene Miles, now to Brian Niebling, and Niebling is put down. 7 metres out from the New South Wales country line. Gene Miles is a dummy half. Lewis is calling for it. It's gone the opposite way. That's Brad Sully, and Sully is put down. No gain in ground. 5 tackles gone. Out to Wally Lewis. Lewis doesn't kick but passes, and New South Wales country have come up with the ball, but they knocked on, and a scrum to pack about 10 metres out from their own line. 48 points to 14. 7 minutes of time remaining. And following tonight's match, for the first time in 1983 on New South Wales television anyway, 2 Brisbane schools will be seen in the Commonwealth Bank Cup quarter-final between Murgon High and Keebra Park High. In fact, the Commonwealth Bank Cup tonight played a double-header. Fairfield Patrician had a big win over Eastwood Maris Brothers, and Murgon High had a good win over Keebra Park High to take them on to a semi-final appointment next Wednesday, Murgon, when they'll meet up with St Gregory's College, Campbelltown. 17 going on for New South Wales country is Tony Morgan. Neil Michel, the hooker, replaced. Scott into his back line. Put down about 8 metres from the try line. Here's Lewis passing, picking up Gene Miles, and Miles has gone in to score yet another Brisbane try. Well, it's become a procession for the Brisbane unit, and even watching them score tries, the comment of Keith Barnes, I'm sure, was fairly spot on. They seem to be doing it in second gear, as we see Wally Lewis cutting players out, putting others into gaps, and Gene Miles takes the score to 52 points to 14. He has certainly come ahead, that player, Gene Miles.
Yes, he's got plenty of pace, hasn't he? Feeds off Wally Lewis particularly well, of course, and he runs into the openings, and Wally Lewis just gives him the ball. But when he gets into the gaps now, he knows exactly what to do. He's got a good turn of pace. He fends, he's got a good fend, and sets up his supports well as well also.
Wally Lewis taking the conversion successfully. and extending the scoreline to that reading of 54 points to 14. Without taking anything away from the Brisbane victory tonight, probably because I am a country boy, I realise the problems involved in getting a New South Wales combined country side assembled and keeping them together as a team. But they only come together for their city country matches, then their occasional KB Cup match. They haven't been together since they played South. Here's Brisbane off again. Mitch Brennan, one to beat, has support. Well, he probably...
Good tackle too, wasn't it?
It was a good tackle, but he certainly had support on the inside and should have used it. Brad Sully was there with him, and a scrum to go down 15 away from the New South Wales line. But simple geographics prevent this side from getting together and keeping what teamwork they had at a respectable level. Referee Barry Barnes calling for it again. In fact, this New South Wales countryside are going through the same problems that the Queensland countryside would encounter. Impossible to get them together for a long enough period of time. Talking of Queensland country, it was Manly who played them at Lang Park and racked up a score of well into the 70s. And so both these sides heading to the semi-final next Wednesday have come up against the combined country teams of both states. And I guess one very interested viewer to this match tonight would be Manly coach Bob Fulton, looking for what he may believe to be a weakness in the Bobby McCarthy side. There's certainly not too much of a weakness in this fellow on tonight's showing. Gene Miles cut down from behind by French. Lindenberg across for Scott. Of course, Fulton will have the added advantage of players like Dave Brown, Paul Vaughton, Kerry Bowstead to help him, I suppose, in some shape or form, mapping out his game plan. Although being Queenslanders at heart, they mightn't want to tell him. They might say, you work it out for yourself, Bobby.
Yes, I don't think there'll be too much love lost in the game up there next week, particularly when you got Close laning up in the centres against Meninga and Miles. It's certainly going to be a clash that's worth going a long way to see, I'm sure.
Forgot about Chris, and he's having a magnificent season.
Yes, he had one of his most impressive games last week, and big, strong, powerful fellow. He appears to have shaken off the injuries that troubled him last year, and certainly right back to the form now that won him an Australian jumper a few years ago.
Ball played by Ashton for country. Foster taking it up the middle of the ruck, giving it to Patrick, and then on to Wicks over on the far side of the ground. This is Gibson. $54 points to 14 then. Here's Patrick reaching the halfway. Tackle number 5. Carney. His kick has found touch deep inside the Brisbane half. In fact, about 5 metres inside the quarter. Bob McCarthy, the Brisbane coach. Nine tries to Brisbane. Miles turning it to Jones, who in turn has put it down. And play-on, says the referee, with McKinnon coming up with it. This is French. Put down on the 22 line. Davis. Morgan, Carney, Morgan. Carney, Elwyn, Johnston. The bomb coming from Ashton. And that player would be offside and a penalty to the Brisbane team. Ten metres out from their own line. Exchange of a joke there between Wally Lewis and the referee. And the siren. Mercifully sounding for New South Wales country. It heralds in, though, the clash of combined Brisbane and Manly Warringah at Lang Park next Wednesday. Brisbane 54 with Lindenberg 2, Brennan 3, Meninga, Patterson, Tessman and Miles tries. Meninga 6 goals, Lewis 3. New South Wales country 14, Carney and McCartney tries. Elwyn 3 goals. We'll have the Rank Arena Electronic Sales and Rentals Man of the Match Award together with the Singapore Airlines Superstar Award points for you in just a moment.